The NASCAR media landscape in the 2000s saw a plethora of buffet items, as you got your traditional American cheeseburgers, your baby back ribs, and New York style pizza all on Speed Channel, as shows like Trackside Race Day and NASCAR Live served you your traditional meal of NASCAR related content, leaving you little appetite left in a 3-hour sit down. Still, what if you were a fan that craved something like peanut butter fried chicken or some Carolina pepper chicken wings? A TV show that was not your average clean-cut, straightforward NASCAR infomercial that sailed away from the motorsport's flaws. That show was Pitbull. Now, it had nothing to do with the NASCAR team owner we know and love today as Mr. Worldwide, but it did have all the bark and all the bite of the animal that Pitbull, the rapper, was named after. Typically aired on a Saturday night at 6:30 Eastern Time, the show started off every single episode on the Speed Channel in the same way, the same tone, leading in with this straightforward message to the viewer. The following is a live discussion program. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of Speed Channel, Fox Cable Networks, News Corp, or its affiliates. And you just knew right there, this show was unlike anything on the Speed Channel or in NASCAR programming, as you got Fox Sports themselves coming out with this major disclaimer basically saying, yeah, we might not agree with everything said on this program, leading into a distinct jingle different from the cheesy ones you'd see on Race Day or Trackside or the other speed programming, as you would know that this Pitbull show was coming up just by this intro. Simulcast on Speed on the TV side and SiriusXM on the radio side, these episodes would be anchored by Speed Channel veteran Steve Byrnes, as he would be the neutral moderator of the panel, and he would be that middleman that would be right in the middle of the hornet's nest with these 4 journalists with strong ties to the NASCAR garage and even stronger opinions. In many ways, Ben Blake from the Racer magazine, he was the motorsport purist of the panel. Also represented was the strongly opinionated yet well-liked and represented David Poole, reporting for the Charlotte Observer. And to his left would be the guy, in his own words, he gave something to do with his life, and that would be Mike Mulhern, as the two would often trade paint on almost every single issue. It was hard to get these two to stay in the same lane or drive on the same lane because they were polar opposites on this Pitbull show. Rounding out the panel was the NASCAR take, a Marty Smith fresh out of college. Over the course of this 2004 inaugural season of this show, there would be some guest analysts such as Jim Utter, Robin Miller, and Kenny Bruce, who would act as sub-ins for the main analysts should they not be able to make it a certain weekend. Meanwhile, there are also a few drivers that would stop by and hang out on the show. In fact, the Jeff Gordon, yes, the 4-time champion of the NASCAR Cup Series, even made an appearance on this show. Though I could not track down the official footage from this show, the team praised him for being a true pro and a comfortable, confident man on camera. However, David Poole thought he was almost too good and too polished for this type of show, going along with the show's look and feel of the sports reporter show on ESPN. It was a politically incorrect take on the NASCAR circuit, covering the most popular topics surrounding the sport at the time. And I gotta say, doing this in the 2004 season, it was almost perfect timing because you had so many things happen in this season. You had the implementation of the NASCAR chase format, controversies with how Victory Lane was conducted and how it was basically a corporate Wild West. Controversial finishes at Nashville and Talladega, as this was before NASCAR had electronic timing and scoring, and of course NASCAR overtime, the idea of NASCAR making international stops such as in Mexico City, and the usual debates about where NASCAR should host the All-Star race and how they should distribute the prize money among its teams. In a normal NASCAR setting, you would see the analysts have a filter, kind of like a politician. On Pitbull, the reporters on this show, they would not hold anything back, even if that meant calling out or hardcore criticizing NASCAR for things they did wrong.
Mr. France and Mr. Hunter were coming out here today, but they decided not to, and they're going to sit home and watch the race on TV. So if they're watching, I'd like to ask them to please give us a call, because we have a lot we'd like to discuss with them.
Or NASCAR lied when they said we asked everybody and they said nobody flipped the switch. One of those two things lied, and whoever lied ought to be on the street tomorrow.
Spend $15 million on a test track for for NASCAR racing. I think that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. Spend that $15 million on education.
Dave Finley picked that sign up and put it back up there. So a guy who worked for NASCAR, a guy who works for NASCAR, a guy, again, a man who works for NASCAR.
Did he say NASCAR?
Picked that sign up and put it on the top of the car. What I want to know is how much did Dave Finley get fined?
NASCAR made a big mistake. You know, they will grill a driver, they'll penalize him, they'll bring him into the truck to talk to him if he doesn't get out of the gas when the caution flies. They want these guys to get out of the gas. But what happens when they make that mistake? They can wash their hands of it and walk away. It seems to me that might be a bit of a double standard. I guess Robbie Gordon's not the only guy doing a double this week.
So as you can tell, the panel did not grant any immunity to NASCAR when they made horrible decisions, but they would also give the France family credit for improving the safety of the motorsport, as this was around the time where safer barriers were becoming the norm at these NASCAR racetracks. Charlotte and Texas started installing them in the masses, and the panel would credit them in a big way, even stating that this move saved lives on the racetrack.
They single us out in the garage and they say, why can't you guys ever say anything positive? Well, gosh. I mean, there are numerous positive steps they have taken just this year with the safer.
The things that NASCAR has done in the last 3 years may have saved 2 lives this last week.
At least 2, maybe 3.
At least 2 lives this last week, and we should
And it's part of the Dale Earnhardt legacy.
Now, we now all have proof.
That Dale Earnhardt did not die in vain.
It's hard to truly know how the show was received, but I think this right here is a major statement. Just look at the crowd they pulled from Martinsville 3 hours after the gates closed in the frigid cold known as October in Virginia. Steve Byrnes even mentioned a nice lady's comment during the broadcast stating, "I like trackside, but that's fluffy. I want Pitbull to be an hour." Leading into one of the main criticisms of the show, as the show's structure led to the reporters constantly talking over one another, and that would be equivalent to, as the show was named after, a bunch of pit bulls talking over one another.
Right now, going to California twice?
Absolutely. Going to Texas twice.
Yeah. Okay, what did I just say? I said go to Texas twice. I said go to California twice.
Oh, it's out of control. It's out of control.
You know that.
Why are we racing on Saturday night?
Because it dumps $20 million into the local Charlotte economy.
So does Sunday afternoon. So does Sunday afternoon, because you get an extra day.
Later.
Forget prime time.
We're gone. Come back and see us.
And this wasn't just a bunch of casual fans in Vermont, as some of the drivers themselves would voice their displeasure with the show on Speed Channel shows themselves. The most vocal critic being, believe it or not, Jimmy Spencer, Mr. Excitement. Despite being one of Speed Channel's most decorated personalities, he did not like Pitbull at all, or as he called it, pit hogs.
I watch these hogs or something they call it. What these media people? Pitball. What a joke. Well, whatever it is. But anyway, now they're criticizing pit hogs. Well, now they're criticizing NASCAR for the new point system. Yeah. They're picking on the TV, the ratings. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens. You got a bunch of these guys that all they want to do is criticize. Whatever it is. It's a damn joke is what it is.
Though to Jimmy Spencer's credit, he did not back down. He had the balls to go on Pitbull a week later at Talladega and state why he didn't like that show his issues with the program live, face-to-face with the 4 reporters in a civil manner.
I think the world of the media, I respect every one of you guys. I think you guys got the toughest job because you got to drag stories out of people. But what bothers me is that as good as you guys are, you're rude to one another on this show. And that's what upsets me.
Though it was not only just a few drivers and a few critics that had an issue with this show, as the Winston-Salem Journal reported at the time that Pitbull was on the cusp of being put down in the back. They were going to be taken out behind the Speed Channel studio and shot with a rifle. According to several sources in the TV industry, the show was going to get axed in NASCAR's post-television negotiations to make the corporate suits in Daytona awfully happy. Many fans figured that NASCAR was against the Pitbull show because it was politically incorrect. Thus, for the show's next move, the NASCAR faithful figured this was the France family's way to make things correct once again. Pitbull would not live to see a second year. In an email, Speed Channel's president Rick Miner stated, "We live by ratings, and Pitbull did not make the cut for 2005. Despite the reasoning for the show's cancellation, I think in the long run this created a don't poke the bear tone from Fox and NBC, as they saw that NASCAR, they might not necessarily be accepting of criticism and they would decide to stay in their lane. Now for a while this was not noticed because you had strong NASCAR shows and strong NASCAR personalities such as Kenny Wallace, Kyle Petty, and Jimmy Spencer, Mr. Excitement, who would really take the reins with his Crying Towel segment on NASCAR Race Up. 10 years later, you watch that same show and you also watch the Backseat Drivers program or some of the stuff NBC has, and you can tell just how feminized and unwilling some of the people on that show are willing to step outside the box. Okay, now to an extent, Pitbull, it would have worked better if they would have had more of the traditional feminine trait of not talking over one another, letting people finish their statements. Though, to the defense of the reporters, I'm going to defend them hardcore in this situation. This was a 30-minute show. Heck, if you subtract the 3 commercial breaks, you only have 20 minutes to talk about 4 different topics per show, and there was not a lot of time and not a lot of real estate to state their opinions. So in this situation, they had to stake it out even at the expense of the general flow of the program. And I think that was the main reason why this show had a lot of criticism, had a lot of issues, and the easy situation, the easy resolution would have been just to extend it to an hour. The show being an hour would have fixed this issue though. We will never see it and likely never will get to see any show like this ever again. Unless we get a situation where a media company that does not have ties to NASCAR is able to invest the money, invest in talent to really create a show like this and get people to watch on a consistent basis, but that is going to be awfully hard to do. For now, I just hope some people upload some more episodes of Pitbull. That show is an interesting one to watch. It's interesting to see what people in the industry thought back in 2004, and Pitbull in many ways showcased that. They showcased the opinions and what we love about self-expression in the United States on that 30-minute show. So anyways, this is Nathan for NRF Productions signing out, and just remember guys and gals, life's a beach and then you drive.